We have to give ourselves of, okay, how many eggs do I have in what baskets? And if one of those baskets stopped, then what trouble am I going to be in? And how would I react?
The sooner businesses start and track more data points and build up trends, then you're going to be able to spot and go, oh shit, something's a bit off there. I need to look into that, and then start get into that critical thinking piece of just like, why is this happening? How can I stop it from happening? Or how can I make this happen better or faster? Your business is going to drop out more money sooner if we start and get the data to help us make the decisions.
What would you do if your main source of referral or incoming leads slowed down? Phil, this is something that we pondered with a client recently, and it really made them think, yeah, shit, we are pretty heavily reliant on one specific source of incoming work. And if we didn't have that, holy, this thing would slow down very quickly.
Yeah, there's been a lot of that over the last 12 to 18 months, I think, maybe even longer, with clients having a real awakening of their P&L and lack of cash that's been hitting the bank, because their primary customer is the government, and the government have stopped spending. And that it's like, now what do we do? And it's just like, you got to go to the market and you got to do some work. And that's been a bit of a wake-up call for some of these business owners. But then there's others that are perhaps a little bit beholden to Zuckerberg, and they could be putting up content. There's one particular client that we have that's probably a bit sketchy with some of the content that they put out there, and over the years have faced a few temporary bans on their Instagram account, and then have to go through the process of getting that unbanned, because that's a bit of a lead magnet for them to ultimately go through to the website and get a sale.
Yeah, we have seen this quite a lot recently, and there are so many different scenarios. But one recently last year was that the ads just all turned off for this client, and they just thought, oh, it's been a really slow year of inquiry. And what had happened is that the ads just hadn't been rolled over. And so they got to the end of their reporting cycle and were like, oh, the agency that we're using, we're sorry. And then another whose something happened where I think they changed email providers or something like that, but all of their inquiry was going to spam. But that hadn't happened previously. So they thought, well, we just haven't been getting any leads coming through our website when typically they would. And all of a sudden they randomly checked their spam, and wowee, there is inquiry from weeks ago that they have had no idea has been sitting there. And yeah, and then I think we often will see, or even we saw, where we didn't renew a domain or something like that, and then all of a sudden our website was just offline. So we were sending all this traffic to a website that no longer existed. And I think these little things are always going to happen, but it is worth sort of stress testing, okay, what would we do if inquiry really dried up? And are we too reliant on one specific platform?
Yeah, and the other thing that I would say is on that, how much are you in control of your sales process, and how much of that sale process have you essentially outsourced to somebody else? And in the case of online businesses, a website, your domain, we're relying on Shopify, payment platforms, a whole heap of technology risk. There's spam filters. The other example that I was going to share on the personal front, we've been out and about because we're looking for some new furniture for the whare, and I tell you what, it's a ball ache. I said to Grace, I'm like, it was a rainy day, and I'm like, we'd already had plans. Those plans got cancelled. Okay, let's go and do this instead. And I'm like, okay. I tolerated a few hours, and then I got to having enough. Let's go home. But we're going out looking for furniture, and let's use the example of a couch. And you go to XY stores A, B, and C, and you see A, B, and C. Yep, they're cool, but not exactly what you want. And then you got to wait 12 weeks, whatever it is, made in China, da-da-da-da-da. Then we start going down the route of, we find some other places, and it's made in New Zealand. Oh, great. Short wait time, da-da-da-da-da. Or you've got to go through these places we don't sell direct to the public. And I'm like, you as a business, you've outsourced your sales function to someone else. And in these cases, it was a lot of interior designers. And then I gave the feedback of some previous experience that I've had with some interior designers, and it wasn't favourable. And I'm like, well, they're not doing these businesses any favour. And I thought to myself, and I reflected on it, I'm like, these businesses have outsourced or delegated their sales to somebody else. Why aren't they out there? And there'll be reasons why they're not dealing with the public directly, but their businesses could be so much better if they weren't outsourcing it or in better control of the process.
So if you wanted to buy their stuff, you had to go through
Someone else.
Okay.
Because I was in one particular place and I said to them, so I'm sitting in this particular chair, how much? Oh, I can't tell you that. I'm like, why not? And she's like, I could give you the trade price. I'm like, well, what's the trade price? I'll set up a trade account. I'm like, for sake, you're making this hard. Oh, you've got to go off to this place, this place, and this place. There's gave me 3 places. Two were 2 retail outlets, and one was a retail outlet that sells this particular product. The other 2 were interior designers, but one was interior design and retail. And I'm like, and I said, so you're basically saying that I like this chair. If I want it, I've got to go to somebody else to get it. And depending on the mood of that particular business owner and the margin that they're playing with, I could have 2 different prices. And she hadn't thought about that. She, no, they should be within, $50 or so of each other. I'm like, bullshit. I didn't say that to her, but in my mind, I'm thinking, that's a crock of shit. Depending on what the numbers look like at these respective businesses and how they want to play the margin game, the price will be different. Still waiting for the prices to come back. That's been delegated to Grace, and I haven't had an update as yet. But I tell you what, it's frickin' punishing. So
you will still potentially buy from there?
Well, I don't know. I've got to see what the pricing is. But we've got one piece of furniture that we've gone to 2 people that are going to price it and have got margin to play with. That's ultimately going to go back to one person to manufacture it.
All right. And the piece is already you could see it. Like already effectively.
It's a display piece, but they'll go off and manufacture it, right? And do it in a different colour and stuff and da-da-da-da-da-da. But I was just like, this manufacturer at the top of the chain that's going to produce what finally happens, that you get, is completely oblivious to this process. Like, how much easier would their business be if they made that process easier and dealt with the customers or educated them a little bit more along the way?
Sounds almost harder to buy than a Swiss watch.
You know what? It probably is.
Yeah.
Because you know that you can go and find something that you like from old bloody, what's his name, down in Remuera potentially, or on the North Shore, and he's got it, you want it, cash change hands, and next minute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's out of my wallet and into your bank account, but that thing's onto my wrist and let's get out of here. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's like time kills deals is a big thing out of this, but I think it just highlights, and using the example that you've done, you've got to have visibility of your sales process and where all the weaknesses and breakdowns can be that are ultimately going to create leakage.
Yeah, 100%. And I think a lot of business owners don't actually ever or don't need to think about this, because if they're true to themselves, they don't have a sales process nor a marketing process.
Fuck no.
It's all word of mouth referrals, and we celebrate that. And that's all good and well. That is the best form of work often to get. But a lot of the times you're not magnifying what could actually be out there or in control of that. So a simple example would be, well, if a customer left you a great review, why don't we post that? That's organic reach. Why don't we then turn that into an ad? And it's telling warm audiences that that's actually how good you are, and that speeds up your word of mouth. But I think, a lot of people over this last 3 years have had to sort of review how they do get work, because the market did slow down. And how many times have we given examples about clients then getting back into doing flyer drops, for instance, or cold outreach, or ringing past customers, and those things working because you are back in control of it. And I think for a lot of people, as we've said many times, they haven't had to do that because it hasn't been that hard, but it has been hard, so you've sort of had to do that again. But I think for these clients that went through this, it was a good reminder for them of, okay, it's all good and well when that's working, but if we become too reliant on it, what would we do? And they've then been able to go through that exercise to figure out, okay, maybe we are a bit weak in other areas. So it might be, LinkedIn or outreach or emailing past customers, that sort of thing. And I even had this recently with a business owner who, they are effectively at capacity, but they aren't doing forms of marketing, and part of why they're not is because they're at capacity, but they're also not overly stoked with some of the work that they do, but they're doing that because we're not doing any marketing to then get the things
work
that we want to
be doing. Yeah.
So we see the 2 levers they could pull, and we're going to do more of those, and then we're going to say more no's. And I think that's the reality we have to give ourselves of, okay, how many eggs do I have in what baskets? And if one of those baskets stopped, then what trouble am I going to be in? And how would I react?
Where it reminds me of a recent example that kind of ties back, well, I think it strongly ties back to one of the very early clients that we had, where it's about plugging holes and filling them up because the boat's essentially leaking. And in this particular case, we're helping a client and their business grow their revenue to $10 million plus in the next probably 2 to 3 years and beyond. And they can see that they can do it, but the conversion rate on sales is quite low. And it's like, well, we can go and pump more money in and talk to all of these people, but we're only going to get, for example, say we get 100 people and we're only going to convert 20 of them. So we're spending money to say, talk to and say goodbye to and do nothing further with the 80%. And we know why some of those 80% aren't proceeding. So aren't we better off to actually try and adjust that 20% up to maybe 30 or 40%, plug those holes, fill them up, the boat's going to be able to, or the bowl is going to hold more water, and at the bottom what's going to drop out is more profit.
It's a really good example of basically the opposite of what you were talking about before, right, of delegating all those sales. I saw the same thing where a business owner was saying that they can identify that if X number of people get in touch and they've got enough data over time to know their sales percentage is X, Y, Z, and they've realized, oh, maybe I'm the bottleneck here. If I was twice as good at this, then we would have a lot more customers and clients and revenue would be high and profit, like you say. So what they're going to do is outsource the sales for a bit to proper full-on sales people that are going to come in, learn their business and do the selling part and just do that only and chase around leads, and people have done trials, these sorts of things, and see if they can improve the percentage. Because perhaps the business owner isn't the best person to be doing those sales. So I thought good awareness, because most of us, we would go, no, but it's my business, I want to do it. I don't want to pay someone to do that. But they can identify, shit, if I can move that number, I'm going to make back whatever I've got to pay that salesperson, and it's going to increase the revenue and the value of the business as well. And I think a lot of people probably don't have that awareness to do that, or accept you could get better at sales and it could make things better, in a business. And it's probably not something we talk a lot about as business owners. Are you an established business that needs a solid business plan for the next 12 months? What about accountability every single quarter to make sure that you're taking action and getting closer to your goals? Our 12-month business planning service called The Winning Formula will be perfect for you. Over a half day, we'll map out your next 12 months in business, and then we'll meet quarterly to make sure that you're taking action and getting closer to your goals. This service is great for some external perspective, some challenge, and to help you stay focused on what it is that you really need to be doing in your business, which will help you identify. You can apply for The Winning Formula by booking a call at nextadvisory.nz.
One thing that got highlighted in a recent meeting with a client is the lack of phone calls that happen, and it got talked about for a fair bit of time, because it's just, we'll punch out this email, and because then it's just like tick the box, done, move on to the next thing, rather than going, I'll pick up the phone and talk to someone, build a relationship and get the conversion that way. And I think it's too easy to punch out, and I shared what we do in terms of there'll be an initial call and then there'll be a follow-up email, but at the same time there'll be a follow-up text message, a phone call, then a follow-up text message. And it's just like, people don't ignore text messages. People typically don't ignore phone calls. And if they ignore the phone calls, it's just boom, an immediate text message. But I think it's just too easy to try and do business over email, and it's an excuse to go, it went into spam. I don't want to open that email just now. Phone calls, so much harder to ignore. And I think that's such a low, or an easy access touch point to be able to get results faster.
I think on that, the OG marketing chat, and it still goes on, is basically you should be collecting people's email addresses, because you own that and you can always go back to them. And that's why people bang on in marketing a lot about emails, because you've still got that if your reach stops or you lose your Facebook ad account. And we've seen that happen multiple times for clients. But I wonder if the other piece of that is text. And once we finished recording pods last week, I was sharing with you a horse trainer in Australia using text to text past owners saying, hey, we've just purchased this, I think you'd like a share in it. And I was telling some lads about it, and apparently those horses are moved in 48 hours. But that's the only trainer that I
Oh.
get those texts from. But that's obviously, they've collected my phone number.
Yep.
They're willing to spend the money to to text that database. But if I go to my email, they're still emailing as well.
Wow.
So I'm getting an email, but I'm ignoring the email. But
Easy to do.
But I've opened the 6 texts.
Yeah.
And there's a link in there that I can go see more about it. It is very well done. I said to you, a horse trainer in Australia is probably outperforming 90-something% of New Zealand businesses, because we just simply would not do that, right? Not text someone 6 times in 48 hours with different, offerings.
That's hustling.
Yeah.
Genuine hustling.
And they don't care.
No.
There's no apologies. We've messaged you 6 times, just bang. We think you might be interested in this. Well, take a look at this. We've got one for you. And I think text may be that piece that a lot of people have overlooked. If we can get their phone number, we can then call them, we can text them, we can have that as a piece of data for the future, rather than I've got their email, I've sent them something, might end up in spam. They may not care. They might be on holiday. They may not open it at all. Whereas text, I think, like you say, is, all of us individually could think, how many unread texts do we have? And I bet it's less than unread emails.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got probably one, and it'll be Grace. Just don't read those text messages.
No, actually, shit. Will she be watching it?
Yeah, probably.
Okay. I actually saw as well someone predicting that the phone call piece is going to get harder.
Yeah.
Because I think you showed me an update on Apple where you can sort of screen calls.
Yes.
Basically, these platforms are putting in more friction for phone calls. And also younger people are going, I don't want to answer that.
Did I tell you I had that with a client, a reasonably new client that had the Apple update? I call them. They had that call screening thing. It basically works on the fact that if you're in the contacts, it will come through and allow the call. If it doesn't, if you're not a saved contact in that phone, then it goes to the call screening thing and you've got to justify the call.
Wow.
And I went straight down the barrel of this particular client was just screening my call. And then he got in touch with me and I was like, you haven't saved me in your contacts? I'm like, I'm a bit offended. And he was a little bit embarrassed. He's like, it's just a new phone, this, da-da-da. I've got to turn this feature off. I'm like, sure, mate.
Yeah.
But it was a bit of a chuckle. But yeah, you're spot on. And I think we have shared in the past, potentially in the US, where they're just so much more aggressive with sales and their outreach and what they're doing, that the phone companies now are putting in the barrier to make it harder to get through to the ultimate decision maker, because you're not going to have some 0800 number or whatever it is, blooming number from India or wherever the closer is. They have to screen the call. It's going to make it harder.
Yeah, and then on the social side, algorithms are always changing as well. And I noticed some content this year around how LinkedIn's changing and the platform, and I'm always trying to keep an eye on, okay, I'm posting enough content to collect my data, but then I'm going, okay, this feels a bit different. And then I'm talking to some other people who may be posting things and are looking at their posts going, that's strange, they're not getting as much reach. And so there's sort of some chat around how, the reach of LinkedIn really is slowing down. So I was pumping out different pieces of content purely to
Just
test.
see what stuck.
Yeah, or even I know this has performed well in the past, therefore it should again. I'll change it around a little bit. Oh, wow, that's strange. It's not, you start to know, this should work. So I think it's a good reminder that I think we're always taking social media for granted. And something you and I used to always laugh about is we knew if we would increase our marketing budget on Meta, we'd go, shit, this seems like a lot of money to spend. But at the end of the year, we'll end up going, shit, we wish we spent more.
Yeah.
Because it's just what you do, right? This is working. Oh, should we spend more on it? Oh, I don't know. Is it going to work any better? But often that is when you do spend more because it is working well. And then the whole thing fatigues, or you take it for granted, or the platform changes and you go, okay, let's not throw money at that. It doesn't work anymore. Remember not that long ago, people were complaining massively about changes in the algorithm on Facebook and Meta, and then also, the ad cost has just become so expensive, and spanning years for us doing Facebook marketing, where you could just throw $100 at something and be like, oh shit, I think 100,000 people saw that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
And now you'd be,
I think the underlying secret that you're talking about there, that's implied, is the answers people are looking for are in the data. Is you can go back and you can look at sales trends, you can look at website trends, you can look at reach trends, you can look at, I used to get X amount of email inquiries a month and they've dropped off. Oh, well, they're in my spam. the data, and I think the sooner businesses start and track more data points and build up trends, then you're going to be able to spot and go, oh shit, something's a bit off there. I need to look into that, and then start get into that critical thinking piece of just like, why is this happening? How can I stop it from happening? Or how can I make this happen better or faster? Your business is going to drop out more money sooner if we start and get the data to help us make the decisions.
Yeah, and I think marketing has become one of those things that, like, a lot of Kiwi people don't want to do, but it's almost an infrastructure piece of a business now, where if you don't have that infrastructure piece set up, we can challenge a business owner and go, okay, maybe you don't need it, but here's what you can't see that you're missing out on. And an example of that is working with some business owners that do very well with organic reach, and they punch above their industry average, and they've never done any paid marketing, and like, no, we don't need to. And I'm like, okay, well, that's cool, but they've got all of this data, but they've also got data leak. So basically, if they had been collecting all of this just by having tracking set up and building different audiences, they've got some cool shit coming in the pipeline. And I was saying to them, well, it would be cool, as much as you don't think you need to or don't need to, that you could then tell all of these past people, because you've been tracking them, like, hey, we're doing this now. And you could spend a bit of money to do that. I'm like, you can't do that because you haven't actually been capturing that data. And I said, if you were to sell this business, that's less, the business not doing it is less valuable than had you been doing it. And I think it's also getting to a maturity point where the business owners who understand that and have it set up, their businesses can outcompete those who haven't.
Yeah.
And we're deep into looking at this stuff, and by no means are we clocking every aspect of marketing, but we know that, okay, if we've got a new workshop that we want to roll out, great, I can send an email. But then I'm saying to the marketing team, oh, hey guys, I need to turn this into an ad, and we need to run it to warm audiences or people who have come to workshops in the past. Okay, great, that's easy, leave it with us. Done.
Boom.
And it can be done because we're tracking that as we go. And then I think the cross-platform piece is what's going to be fascinating as well, where you might have a client who's got a stack load of email addresses and they just rely on email, but they can then take those emails and then run an ad to them on a different platform, obviously not breaching any privacy rights or anything like that.
No,
of course,
wouldn't be doing
it
that.
all properly. But even then going, right, well, Google own YouTube. Okay, well, if you've got a YouTube audience, you could then run an ad to them somewhere else on the internet because they've seen your content. And I think those are those little things that people who don't explore the space are potentially missing out on, because they just can't connect the dots because they don't know what they don't know.
Yeah, and I think coming back to that original point of the pod of just like, that whole in your business, what's driving all of those sales, and the example that you shared was like the website. In other business, it's referral or relationship based. There's some punishing Parnell accountants out there that are heavily reliant on some of those bankers, Luke. And if there was a change in relationship there,
Good point.
where's the work going to come from? And I think no one's going to know because they're not tracking the data. And I think let's go back and firstly go, right, we've got X amount of sales. How much has come from web? How much has come from referrals? How much, what are your different channels of sources of where's this? If one of these were to break down, if there was a worst case scenario to one of these, what's that impact to our business, and how can we manage that or mitigate the risk? And what else could we be doing to go, right, if there's 80% exposure to this one thing, how can we get the rebalance? So I suppose it's like a portfolio investment where we're having a bit of a rebalance of what's going on the inside, of bringing that down to, say 60 or 70% and bring the others up, so that we're not solely reliant on, Barry from the BNZ, and then he buggers off to, retirement. He's down in Pawanui with all the lawyers that he's helped finance. And then you're left high and dry because Barry's gone and you haven't had another introduction.
Yeah. Rebalancing sounds like, almost my over-reliance on Heartland Bank and Tesla. But I think a lot of these people too, they are reactive rather than proactive. And I think a lot of Kiwi people are very good at being reactive when their back's against the wall. If they were going to run out of money, they would have a solution. But they wait to run out of money to then access the solution and implement the solution. And we're constantly trying to tell business owners, why don't we be proactive about it? And that same thing in this space where it's, okay, maybe we do get a volume of leads through the newsletter or the website. Cool, but can we amplify that? Can we support it? And can we, actually cross-platform or use some different ways to get work so that we don't have to do it when we our back is against the wall. And I think if you can get in that practice, and it's probably almost, as we're talking about this, if there's something coming to mind where you go, oh, we probably should be doing that, you probably should be. And you've probably got the answer of what that is.
It's amazing the mindset of an individual, how it shifts when you're under pressure. And I think the secret there, and this has also come up with a client in recent weeks as well, is just that they've identified when the pressure's off, that there's a direct correlation to their numbers. And then just sharing what you were saying before about, when a Kiwi's back's against the wall and reactive and they'll make stuff happen, how can you create, as a business owner, pressure every day to go, right, what is the one thing I need to be doing to move the needle? And we've spoken about it before, but you've got to put some pressure on yourself. Otherwise, it's just like, you know what? Yeah, I don't need to worry about this today. I'll go and jump in the boat and go for a fish.
Yeah, or do the same again. And I think we've touched on this in prior pods too, but people have more data than they realise. Zero customer lists, for instance, past emails of people that they've sent to, might be able to run a list of people that they've emailed before, tidy that up a little bit. We all do have these opportunities around us to be proactive, but it's how do we bring ourselves to get to the start line? And I think we have to get a bit hungry and want it.
Yeah, and I think once you get there, a big challenge for a lot of people, because we talk about, and I think it might have been in the previous pod about around some numbers and stuff, the amount of business owners that still just don't run a P&L. And it's either you don't want to or you don't know how, and I suspect it's a don't know how, and if you don't know how, you're probably too scared to ask, and because it's going to be confronting and potentially showing up the fact that, oh, should I run a business and I don't know how to run a P&L out of MYOB or zero? It's the same with some of this data. You've got questions about your business. It is your data. If you don't know where to go and find it, talk to your accountant. They will know how to use Xero better than you, potentially. So just say, hey, look, I'm trying to find this, or go to some online, put it on LinkedIn. Just say, hey, look, I've got a business, I'm trying to do this. Does somebody know where I can get this information from? Somebody will have the answer. You just got to ask.
Yeah, Google it. And I think, on that as well, I was working with a client recently where they had a lot higher gross profit margin in 2 years. And I said, what were you guys doing in those 2 years? Why is GP higher? And they're kind of like, oh, well, we know why it's gone down in these years. I was like, no, you need to actually get into that and have a look and see what jobs you were doing, because the brain has lost it. And they're like, oh, we can just click into that and have a look at the invoices, eh? Bingo, spot on. So that's going to then help you analyse, okay, what work were we doing that was at a better margin?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us do have this data, but again, it's a good example of being proactive rather than reactive.
Spot on.
Well, hopefully people don't have a meltdown and lose their main source of their work, but I do think stress testing this is something that we often do with business owners when we are doing business planning and challenging them. Okay, great, but what if this did stop? And the I guess the tough way to think about it too is, okay, if you were stripped out of your business and think of all the things that you do, like how would the business carry on? So you may be the key salesperson, for instance. Well, then who would do those sales calls or whatever it may be that you are in charge of? And it's, again, another good thing to think about. Although it could be seen as negative, it can help stress test what could potentially happen in your business, because we see it time and time again where business owners do have to deal with these things.